Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Office Hours Tuesday Focus. This is 260427. Our focus this week is on reducing post-production time by leveraging green screen, broadcast workflows, and AI to potentially eliminate weeks of editing by moving post into kind of a real-time framework. Maybe think of it as an updated AI-enhanced version of what we used to call live to tape, where the goal is to reduce the time and effort needed from the performance to the finished product. To help us understand all of this, we're joined by Ryan Summerfield and Isaac Dantzler of SociallyU, who are going to guide us through their operation and help us focus on the rapid creation of web and broadcast-ready material using tools that allow content creation in near real time. I'm sure there will be a ton of questions about the gear, software, and tools they recommend. So once again, our Q&A system is online. Let me pop it up. And when I do that, if you want to shoot the QR code that's showing up on your screen right now, you can get into the Q&A using that method or simply by typing in askofficehours.global. That'll get you into the same place. And that is the way you can put your questions into the show. And Cindy Drozda is going to be our Q&A reader for the show, and she will be inserting them into the live stream at the proper time. So all that stuff said, let me get this hash off the screen here. And Isaac and Ryan, welcome to Office Hours. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
We've been looking forward to this show for a while. I'm fascinated by the whole concept of what you guys are doing. For those who might not understand, Isaac, can you tell us what SociallyU is all about? I understand it's kind of a studio style facility as much as a production approach. So can you give us an overview of what you guys do?
Yeah, of course. So SociallyU, we're a video production studio, and essentially we do broadcast workflow, but for all types of video production. So you come to our facility here in Tennessee and you film whatever content you want to film, or you go live with whatever content you want to go live with. And we use like a stack of broadcast equipment to basically use a broadcast workflow where then all we've got to do is trim out the time you said sandwiches when you meant to say shore or whatever the little mistake is, right? And so it really drastically reduces the time to the types of video we're making. It makes us really great at the content we're trying to produce here, and it makes it where we're able to achieve it in a lot quicker of a pace than we would have been otherwise. And on top of that, we use green screen to make it where we have a large variety of curated and client specific sets to make sure that when our clients are here, they're getting an experience that feels really, really high end. So a lot of what we're aiming for is like, let's make the type of video you'd see when you go watch a masterclass, right? Let's take that type of video and we'll make it something that we're able to do really efficiently and really well.
I imagine there's a wide variety of people who use your service. Does the typical client come to SociallyU with some kind of existing goal, or how much do they need to figure out ahead of coming in to your facility to getting something done?
Yeah, I think it depends on the client for sure. But a lot of the people who come in are subject matter experts, and we love subject matter experts. They get to come in and they get to just talk, right? It really gets to feel like you're sitting across from them or watching them perform and really give something they've put their all into and know a lot about. However, we've also partnered a lot with other agencies. We are actually been a really great agency partner to a variety of kind of advertising and other sorts of firms where we'll come alongside them and produce some content that they want to produce for a client, but it's just something that whether it be for it's hard to get this type of location or the amount of content they want to get done in a certain amount of time, or just simply they know that we're really good at doing this type of content, we'll come alongside an agency and we'll be kind of just the backbone, the production for what they need. So there's a varying sliding scale and it makes us sit somewhere in between your traditional full service advertising agency and also a bare bones video production operation. We kind of sit in the middle of that.
Hey, Ryan, you're kind of on the tech side of things. Can you tell us a little bit about the tech stack you're using and some of the capabilities people will find when they come and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So like we mentioned, the core of what we do is a green screen studio. So we have a big green site wall. We have up to 8 cameras and 8 ultimats running that. So every camera comes through an ultimat. We have a ATEM Constellation 4 ME 4K, which is our switcher. We have a 120 by 120 video hub, as well as another 40 by 40. Audios run through a Behringer wing, actually 2 Behringer wings, one for comms, one for the live. part of it. And it's a very big Blackmagic stack. A lot of what we do is that. Networking is with Unify, and we've got a big Unify stack as well. So a lot of fun tech. It's a lot of fun to rock up every day and see what can we break today and how can we make it hopefully better or maybe worse. But it's a lot of fun there.
You've talked a little bit about the hardware there. What about the software programs that you run? What are you guys fluent in, and how do you help a client who comes in off the street, either who knows a lot about what they want or who is clueless about this whole process and really needs their hand held the entire way through?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of in the name of what we're talking about today. So we hate post-production. We do whatever we can to avoid any sort of editing, any sort of... We want to finish the day, hand over the drive, and just walk away and off to the next client. So anything we can do to reduce the friction on the day. In terms of software, like if we do need to do editing, we do it in Resolve. We also do a lot of work with AI now. A lot of work with AI now. And the stack of that changes by the day, it seems, because every day there's something new and something better coming out. But we do a lot of work with Claude. But typically the client will come in with their subject matter or what they're talking about. We will load that into the teleprompter if that's needed. So it's a lot of simple things. Like teleprompter app is called Teleprompter, which is really easy to find. And we also have ProPresenter. We do a lot of just quick things to throw up on the screen, and Keynote, PowerPoint, all the usual things. But we just pick the tool that is required for the day.
In my experience, I've worked with hundreds of CEOs and content experts, and it seems like half of them are really comfortable after 5 minutes, and the other half of them have no idea what's going on. If you run into trouble, are there staff people around who can help them in terms of switching maybe from a solo to camera with a teleprompter into maybe an interview type of situation where someone can help guide them over their problems?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, we try and do a lot of preparation in advance because changing things on the fly is hard, especially in green screen. A lot of people think that, oh, it's green, I'm now on the moon now and I can do what I want. But that's not how that works. So, because we do a lot of work to try and make someone look like they are in the environments. So clients, helping the client and making them feel comfortable is one of our top priorities. So we will spend a lot of time making them feel welcome, making them feel comfortable, getting them in the space, making sure it's comfortable for them. And there are a few tricks that we do. So if someone is, not doing well talking to the camera, we might put on the teleprompter a face so they actually have someone to talk to, or we might ask them to look to the side and, do a side angle and be looking at a person. So we'll flex on the day, but luckily a lot of the time, we have people who are semi-confident, but like you say, there are definitely days where you get your money's worth.
Absolutely. Isaac, can you tell us a little bit about the types of people that you have worked with? What are some of the things where it's gone really smoothly, and what are some of the things where it's taken more effort to get the kind of product that you want and put it out the door?
Yeah, we've had people come from all over the world to film here at SociallyU, which is, first of all, just really, really cool to get to be a part of that. And I would say the vast, vast majority of people who come in here really know exactly what they're here for, and they're really prepared. And I think the biggest thing, Andre says this all the time, the studio rewards preparedness, right? We operate at our best when someone comes into the studio and they know exactly what they want to film. I think our roughest clients have been people who either have not been on camera before and the scripts they've come prepared with are very written to read and not written to read aloud. And so those will be tough because they'll start using words like perchance and happenstance, and they'll start tripping over themselves a little bit, right? And there are people who can deliver that excellently, but it can be difficult.
I remember a lot of training about the difference between writing for the ear and writing for the eye. Most people are trained in high school beyond to write for the eye, to be read off a page. And when you're writing for the ear, that's not mostly how people talk. So you've run into that, I would imagine, a bunch.
100%. And then ironically enough, as we go to talk about all the wonderful AI stuff that we've been doing, a lot of people have also come in and every single script is written by ChatGPT. And it's not just that it's written by ChatGPT, it's that you can tell it's written by ChatGPT. And these scripts, they're not great. That was a little AI riff there.
Well, we've all been facing that. I mean, the point of AI is large bodies of data that get averaged down into the most likely outcome, which means you're going to get the same most likely type of prose. And so, I think there are algorithms people are developing now to say, to just look at scripts or look at streams of vocalizations and say, what are the chances this was all coming out of an LLM? So you've actually seen that make it harder to get the results you're looking for. Is that what I'm kind of getting out of this?
Yeah, and it's only really when people think, okay, what I can do is on my way in on the Uber, I'll get on my phone and I will say, hey, here's the script. Here's the thing. I put in my lesson plan for my, I'm a professor. Here's my lesson plan. Write me a script for each lesson, right? And they'll just read it word for word. And that's where the struggle comes in. You know, I think we found a lot of times it's very helpful for people. It's like, you're an expert in this. Let's get you a bullet point list. Riff on it, you're going to do great. And we do work with people on that and getting them to that point. But, you know, that is a small subsection of people. A lot more of the people who are coming in here really do, you know, they come in, they know exactly what they're wanting to deliver, and they can knock out goodness. I think we had a client in here recently who did, what was it? At least like 30 videos in one filming day, and they were decently long video, you know, full 10, 15-minute videos or so. So it's easy to knock out a lot of content when you come with a plan.
What's the deliverable they walk away from? Is this just a file that lives on, you send off as an email to their website or something like that? But is there something they mostly ask for these days?
You know, I think this is another one where it really depends on the client. I talked about how we work a lot with agencies, but we also work a lot with subject matter expert types, right? And for the subject matter expert, usually we're delivering them a Dropbox link. All of our deliveries through the cloud, it's easiest for us. So we're delivering them a Dropbox link right now where it's like, hey, here's everything that you had. Here's video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever it needs to be. But what's amazing about our workflow system, and this may be getting a little too putting the cart in front of the horse here, but we're able to deliver to also those agencies and people who want more creative control a fully file structured, fully planned out set of files. So they're able to go and see, okay, here's video 1, take 1, video 1, take 2, and all the notes that go along with it, right? So we can kind of tailor our deliverable to the client depending on what they're looking for. So recently, as an example, we had a client in here who he comes in and he makes a bunch of YouTube videos and he just makes them back to back to back to back to back, and he nails them every time. So there's no need for us to worry about the takes. It's just kind of video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this series, video 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that series. But at the other hand, we'll have somebody come in where it's like, we're making one video today, but we're going to get it right. And so it's only video 1, but take 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you know, whatever it needs to be to get it right.
Sure. That makes perfect sense. Walk me through a typical thing. Like, let's say I'm going to show up at 10 o'clock on an average morning. What do you guys take me through in terms of preparation if this is my first time in your facility? What are you going to tell me is most important for me to think about, and how are you going to help me kind of get this thing done right?
I think what's most important is that you're comfortable. We spend a lot of time focused on hospitality here at the studio. So on a filming day, we actually have a person who we contract in to be a dedicated hospitality person. I like to call them the director of hospitality, but that's DOE for short, so that doesn't really work out. The hospitality is really where we start by making on-screen talent feel comfortable. So we actually come in, you come to SociallyU, you book a full day. We're not really booking for a few hours or just one video, right? It's booking the whole day. And so with that, we're able to say, hey, you come in, there's some pastries, we've got coffee, we've got tea, we've got soda, we've got water that's been chopped up fruits and ice, and we've got everything laid out and ready to go. We've got a makeup artist who's absolutely wonderful, and she is there to make sure that you look great on screen. And we're there to say, hey, we're here to support you. Don't think about anything except what you're saying and what you're trying to achieve here, right? Focus entirely on how you would be when you're doing this. Normally, we think that honesty and authenticity comes across really well. And so we try to emphasize, hey, be you. but like 50% more. We actually, Jay, one of our team members, he does a little shtick every time a new client comes in who hasn't been here before. And he's like, if you and I were talking and I were to introduce myself to you and say, hey, how are you doing? And give you a nice little handshake. But if I'm on camera, I have to be, hey, how are you doing? It's good to meet you. And it's like, it's not about being fun. It's about taking whatever tone you were at and just bump it up a little bit. We joke and say the camera cuts out half your personality, right? So you just got to turn it up a little bit. And usually we're able to get people comfortable. We'll say, hey, what music do you want to listen to? We'll play you some music before you're going there, because we got to dial in lighting and get things ready to go for you when you sit in the chair. And so usually about an hour after you arrive at the latest, we're ready to film. And once we're ready to film, we can just keep going, right? As long as we're not changing sets, we can just keep going all day, because the system is just built to roll. So we'll take a break for lunch. We'll have a wonderful lunch. We'll get catered in from a local restaurant. We have a lot of great restaurants here. And so we'll get that catered in. You have a great lunch. You get back to filming and you walk out the door. And I kid you not, we have a wall, we have a fridge, and it is full of thank you notes from our clients and talent who's been on screen, who just is like, man, you guys just really served me well, and you helped me create something that I'm really proud of, and you helped me feel comfortable doing it. And we've had people who have been in studios all over the world, and almost every single one of them who comes through here says that is the best studio I've ever been in, the best filming experience I've ever had.
It's nice. I'm interested. You mentioned teleprompters, and my production career, a lot of circumstances where I've had executives talking on teleprompters. It seems to me that it goes one of two ways. Some people, it makes them a lot better really quick, and other people, it makes them a lot worse really quick. And I've never been able to figure out what it is about some people who can read off a prompter and sound like they're talking to you, and other people, you put the same script in front of them and it just kind of freezes them up. Have you run across things like that? And if so, have you had any techniques that have worked for you to help them over that hump?
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely get people who come in and they get the teleprompter in front of them and they start saying the words on the teleprompter that they read in front of them, the words that are there on the teleprompter, right? They just kind of get into that monotonous delivery. This is something where our line between where we are as a production studio, whereas we can kind of lean one way or the other, it can somewhat depend, because we've had people who've come in and they've been about that boring, but it's a client who's brought this talent in and they've hired us to film the talent, and they go, this is all we're getting out of them. Don't try. They just let it be. And so there's times where we do just let it be. But when we are able to work with them, a lot of times we will try rewording the script. Tyler on our team is incredible with words. And so a lot of times he's our teleprompter operator, because he's able to go, you got hung up on this word. Let's try changing that phrasing around. Let's try changing this up a little bit. And a lot of times we'll go, hey, let's try something. Let's try just doing the bullet points, or let's do it with no teleprompter, right? And so we'll kind of work with them to figure out what's the best thing. And it just depends on the person and what they want to achieve. Again, we get people in here who are like, I don't care what the performance is like. I just want all the videos. And we push back where we can, as far as we can, and we'll hit a point where they're like, I'm done. You guys got to keep going and get my videos done. And we'll go, okay, you're paying us. What you want it to be, we'll make it, right? So, but we do want to make sure we are experts in this field. So we want to make sure that we are pushing our opinion across where we can, and we want everyone to walk away really, really happy with the results. So as for specific tips of getting people prepared with teleprompter, I think the biggest thing is give room for experimentation, give room for improvisation, right? And I think the best way to do that is just try to get the script in their heads and try to not let them stop. That's the biggest thing we encounter that really just ruins a video. As soon as a client says, wait, hold on. It's as soon as a client says something like that, right? As soon as that happens, you're just going to be downhill from there. As soon as the client edits themselves, we try to tell every single person, talent on stage, hey, we're listening. If we think it's bad, we will stop you. But if we don't think it's bad, keep going. Take your time. Take your time to find your word. We'll work with it and we'll figure out what the best solution is, because the more you can get a full delivery in there, the more you can get that, it feels like it flows a lot better. But it can definitely be hard. And there are days where, to be perfectly honest, we've just gone, this is as good as we're going to do, and we move on. So it just depends on the talent and what we're aiming for.
When you're in the moment with a client, what do you see as the biggest problems And I want this, you say that you're working with both clients directly, but also with agencies and things like that. And I'm kind of interested in the dynamic between you guys and the agency guys and the talent guys. Does that ever cause issues, or are there ways you can work around that? What's your experience working with middlemen, essentially?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we try to, I think I've said that phrase like 6 times now. We try to collaborate with the agency early on, right? So we try to get in as soon as we can with them, and we try to have a meeting just between us and the agency before the talent comes into film to understand what does the agency want, what role are we providing? Because we've often said we're willing to provide as much or as little of a role as you want us to, right? We can be our team, and you guys sit back in our, I don't know if you can see this, a massage chair behind me. You can sit back in the massage chair and you can take a look and just relax, or you can be really involved and we can be behind the scenes, right? So we try to have that conversation early on without the kind of talent or the final client, so to speak, involved in there. And then when it comes to there being clashes, I think it's about trying to make sure you can have that discussion. And that's usually when it'll rope in like, okay, talent who's on screen feels this way, agency feels this way, we feel this way. Let's get in a huddle. Let's sort this out between all of us. Because at the end of the day, we all want the best product possible. So how can we make sure we get aligned on that? That is important. And we have stumbled across issues with that in the past, and we've usually been able to discuss through them. And in times where there's been conflict, it's usually just a matter of, okay, how can we figure this out? But there are a lot of times where we've walked away from specifically some of those middleman productions where the thing, whatever it may be, wasn't necessarily the best communicated. And we've learned, okay, we got to communicate that better in the future. So I think the more you can learn how to be honest and open in what you can and cannot do and how you can do it and what takes time and what doesn't take time, if you can communicate that ahead of time, set those expectations, the happier you'll be. Of course, when you get there and they're not necessarily knowing what all the expectations are, that's where it gets trickier. And that's where you just got to learn how to be direct, honest, but also kind.
You've kind of built in my mind this idea of a single person on camera and maybe an interview or something like that. Can you accommodate small panels or groupings? What's the largest? Does that ever work out, or do you mostly focus on this kind of program?
Yeah, absolutely it does. We've actually had 8 people on camera here before, which was, I think, that's the highest number we've ever gone. So we can kind of grow and accommodate. I think generally speaking, 3 is kind of the highest we average to go. And I think if you probably looked at all our productions, we probably do a direct person on camera. Generally, the reason I'm not mentioning, it's actually, it's harder from a technical side in the sense that we're doing more lighting, we're worried about more cameras and switching and all that. But once you get multiple people on camera and it's a conversation, it turns out the show gets a lot easier because there's a lot less worry about scripting. There's a lot less worry about that sort of thing because it usually is just a conversation. But we've done all sorts of productions in that regard. I mean, like I said, we had an 8-person live meeting before, right? So it just kind of depends on what comes our way. But we're able to do just about anything. I mean, I think once you get above 8, you start pushing the limits of both our space and our technology. But I bet we will make it work. That is not a company motto, but I think it could be there somewhere. Maybe it falls under adapt and innovate. I don't know.
There you go. You mentioned the magic word lighting. To me, it seems like the difference between a professional looking video and one that's not as professional. You can kind of tell the homebrew folks because their lighting skills aren't up to date. Anybody want to talk a little bit about your approach to that kind of thing?
Oh gosh, yeah. Lighting is arguably the most, like, obviously audio and stuff is, but in terms of like getting the picture right, lighting is all what's going on there. So at NAB, we were at the ProPsych booth. We were kind of doing demos of a live key on the show floor, and we got it to a point where we even figured out more recently, how do we actually light the green wall at the right angle? And we got to the point where we could literally on the Ultimate hit file clear, which is basically the reset. And it was looking great just by doing that and not touching any dials. So we were actually showing off literally reset, not touching anything and going, hey, if you light it right, you can make it look pretty good. Now, there are dials that we would want to use, but there are many times where we've set it up, we've lit it, and we kind of get to the Ultimate and we just start dialing things in. We're like, hang on. We're doing too many dials right now. Let's get back on set. Let's relight this and let's make some adjustments. And then if we get back and hit reset, we're like, great. If it looks awesome just out of the box, then you're in a good spot. So more and more we are realizing that lighting is exceptionally important. And we recently had we thought that some of our monitors on the multi-view wall were getting dark, and we had some things there. We're like, oh, don't worry about it. It looks fine, but the monitors are off. We're like, actually, no, that's not what's happening. That's just dark. So getting exposures right is very important, and a lot of things fixed after fixing that. So yeah, lighting is key.
Yeah, and you mentioned it in concert with green screen. And since you do a lot of green screen work, I know that everybody I've ever talked to in production, when they first started doing green screen, their anxiety level rises across and through the roof. And it takes some time to get these skills down. Can you talk a little bit about your approach and maybe any tools or things that can help the people who are just at the beginning get a little bit better? They're not going to reach your level because you do it all the time. But what are some good green screen tips for people that are generally useful?
Yeah, absolutely. I can give you a few quick ones. So the one we realized recently, so we've just got the new ProCyc wall with the extended curve, and this thing is awesome. So if I kind of do a bit of a really bad drawing here. So we got the extended curve. If you're doing a green screen, make sure you get a nice big curve. Don't do this little thing. You're going to have a bad day. But we figured out if you have your lights, just like a simple panel light, at the same distance away from the wall as it is from the floor, and just at a 45-degree angle, you'll get a pretty even key. So that's literally what we did on the show floor. So
physics for the win.
Physics win. It always wins. So we tested this on the show floor, and it just hung the lights, got the tape measure out, and then we're like, great, done, walk away. We just adjusted some levels because obviously we had a curve going on, so there was more lights in different places. But also, separation is key. Get it? So as far as you can get away from the wall, the better. Spill is not your friend. So we want to kind of keep moving away and make sure that our person is here, and try and separate the lights so that you got your key light on your person, your backlight on your person. Separate things as much as possible. Just get everything out of the way. But yeah, have that even light on the backgrounds. The other thing we use a lot of is Node Omniscope, which is we use for scopes. But the main thing we actually use it for is false color. So we use false color to
love false color for green screen.
It is an absolute. Yeah. So we have found that. So we use the Blackmagic preset for false color, which is green for around 40 RE, and then pink for around 60. So we basically try and have key light on skins at around pink. And if you can get the whole wall like green, you're in a good spot. So
yeah, that's what I like. Turning something that is not so intuitive into something visual that you can actually make quick decisions with. We are flooded. I'm not at all surprised. We're kind of flooded with questions here, and I'm going to dive over into questions here in just a second. Before that, I got a couple of little things I have to say. Don't forget, officehours.global is the place you can sign up to receive info on our coming guests and shows and stuff like that. Also, we are a not-for-profit. We are a 501c3, so if you'd like to contribute to the work we do here, we'd always appreciate that. That's officehours.global/donate. We'll get you into that. And it is time for me to tip my hat towards Cindy Drozda and have the Q&A portion of our evening commence. Cindy, dive in.
And here's our first question for today from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Can you explain how you shoot background plates on a location? How many cameras do you use? How do you do lighting, etc.?
You both raised your hand, so since Ryan just finished talking, I'm going to go to Isaac for this one to start, and then we'll come back to Ryan. So, Isaac, dive in.
Yeah, so, we've shot so many plates, and I think the biggest thing is it's relatively pretty simple. You want to take whatever camera you're going to use on your green screen out in the field with you wherever possible, and you want to go in and kind of sit with whatever lens and whatever camera height. You just need to measure your camera height to the ground and its position to the talent and position relative to other cameras, and you're going to go back to your studio and replicate the exact same thing. Right? That's kind of the general principle for a plate. Anything beyond that becomes very dependent on the situation. So let's talk about lighting real quick, because I think that's what we just talked about here. So we can kind of bring it into there. It depends on what we're shooting. So I like to think of it this way. Would a light on the talent be affecting the background in any meaningful way? Lots of times the answer is yes. That's when we do want to bring a light on set and film with that light. Sometimes the answer is we're outside in the bright sunlight. We're really just going to be replicating that harsh light inside of the studio, which, while difficult, is something we can do. So we're not going to bring that many lights if we're just shooting a plain outdoor plate, right? As for number of cameras, the number of cameras you bring relatively is going to answer how many people can I have on the set later, because you're going to be framing it for whatever you would be framing it for when you're back in the studio. And that's kind of where, if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to do an interview, well, you're going to need your wide, you're going to need your isolated mid shots, you're going to need your over the shoulders, right? So that can start to answer how many plates you have and how many cameras you need. Now, you could, in theory, film one after the other, but a big thing we found that helps with realism is synced together all of those cameras, because then you get to watch when the car drives by the window in the wide shot. If you cut to the side shot, it's still in sync driving by. It really helps you convince the brain, this is real, this is really happening. So I think that's kind of the general overview of how you would go and shoot a plate. And some of the challenges we found with this is that we realized, we're a on-location production facility now. We were trying to not be that, and so it can be difficult. It is a lot to do. I think Ryan may I don't know if you unraised.
Ryan had his hand up for a moment, but you may have covered everything.
Oh, did I cover? Okay, I didn't know if it was.
Yeah, I think you probably covered what he was going to say. So
yeah,
that we got a lot of questions. So I'm delighted that we can keep rolling through it. I want to get to as many viewer questions as possible. So next question.
Next up, we have a question from Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas. When creating plates with AI tools like MidJourney, what tips do you have for generating a second camera angle?
And since Isaac finished that last one, we'll go to Ryan first for this one.
Great question. When you figure it out, let us know. So we are in the process of trying to figure out the best way of doing this. Now, what we have found at the moment is when we're creating our plates, I was going to answer in the first question, we used to film a lot of background plates, but we're like, hey, if we can sit in a comfy chair and just knock out a plate with an AI, we are all about that. So we're doing a lot of our plates now in AI, which has been really good so far. But so when we always start with our main front shot. So typically it's someone talking to the camera or talking off camera. So we try and tell AI, hey, I'm on a 50mm lens on a full frame camera. I'm at 6 foot high, standing, seating, and we'll get it to make a background plate with a person in the shot as well. So they'll make some random person, or we'll actually input some images of the talent that we have. And also even what they're wearing if we're able to as well. When we say, hey, make this work with their jackets. I mean, I've already changed my background to work with today with the jacket that I'm wearing, and we will get it to make the shot look good for that. And then later on, we'll remove the person and we'll clean that up as well. But once we have that, we're able to then try and say, hey, move 45 degrees to the left or right and give me another shot on a 85mm or whatever we're trying to achieve. And again, it's doing its best trying to come out with a decent option. There is Isaac, what's the tool that we're trying out at the moment?
That is why I had my hand raised. So fantastic, fantastic transition. So I was, we've been using lately Quinn Image Edit through Comfy UI, because we have done in the past a lot of Unreal Engine workflow. You can see, that's the wrong way around, all the Dell workstations behind me there that have A6000s in them. So we've got plenty of brute force local AI that we can use. And so we've used that to generate side angles from time to time. Really, our workflow there is the thing that we found works best a lot is you can kind of chat with your favorite chat large language model, be it Claude, be it Gemini, be it, ChatGPT, whichever you prefer, and get kind of a text prompt built out for the image you want to generate, read through it and make sure it doesn't say anything you don't want it to have in it. Take that, generate the image, take that image, throw it back to your large language model you were using earlier and go, wait a minute, hold on. This doesn't look right. It has this, it has that. The other place that's useful is when we use Quinn Image Edit, because Quinn Image Edit, not the highest resolution, but it does do generally a pretty good job at doing a different side angle. And so we'll take that, feed it into a large language model and say, describe every single detail of this so that I can feed it into a large language or a image generation model and get effectively the same image out. You'll never get the exact same image out. That's part of the point, right? But we can get that prompt that gets you really, really close. And key in there is to ask for a JSON or JSON prompt. Those will be followed better by a lot of these image generation models. For now, all of this can change tomorrow, and that's part of the fun part. But that chat back and forth process, you can work back and forth until you get a really solid prompt and then generate a very high quality version of that image. And that's generally how we were able, if you came by our booth at the ProSci booth at NAB, where we were helping exhibit this year, you could have seen some of the shots that we did. Those had wides and sides, and that's how we did all of those, is with that kind of back and forth process.
Next question.
Craig McFarlane in Boston, Massachusetts asks, beyond the keying, a green screen needs subject lighting to match the scene that will slide in. How do you track and match?
Ryan, you want to handle this one?
Yeah, so similar to what we talked about in the last one, we do, if we're filming a plate, we'll actually get someone to sit in the shot and we'll just record a little bit just so we can see what someone looks like in that environment, with or without lighting, because there may be a window behind them, there may be things going on. So we try and match what they did. Same thing with AI is if we have a background plate, we'll actually give it to AI and say, put someone in there looking like they would be lit by the environment. And it actually does a pretty decent job. So we'll actually go, cool. All right, well, is this a right justified lighting, or is it left? And we'll do a few things to try and help us with that. But typically we'll try and pick a side. Some people want to, center lit side or what kind of thing. But we do try and have a shadow side, have a little bit more cinematic, depending on what we're doing. But if we're shooting multiple locations in a day, we will try and say, cool, we're just going to have it right today. And we'll just have all of our plates working for the right. We had a job recently, we had to do 12 plates in 2 days. So we had 6 on the first day on the right and 6 on the second day on the left. It just meant we didn't have to redo all the lighting each day. But yeah, so try and put something back into the shot and match what it should be.
Next question.
This one's from Peter Belden in Houston, Texas, U.S. What tech progressions have you undergone? For example, how virtual sets are done? And what would your next solution provide that the current one doesn't?
Why do I suspect you could do about an hour and 15 minutes on this? So do you have a couple of examples where things have iterated and you've solved problems with what you're doing now versus what you used to do?
I plan to keep this one brief on here. So the biggest one, because yes, you're absolutely right. The biggest thing is we found we have 120 by 120 video hub, which is a huge video hub for the size of studio we are. But what we found is the more flexibility you can give yourself in what goes where, and that goes for audio as well, the more you're able to just instantly adapt to whatever your studio needs to be. So that growth has been really, really major for us. So we started, we had a 20 by 20 video hub and we've gone all the way up. So that's a big one that's changed. So if you're thinking about building a studio, doing stuff similar to ours, maybe go a little bit bigger on the video hub than you might think. Another quick change that we've done is, I talked a little bit about those Dells with Unreal Engine and how we've kind of slowly pivoted out of that, right? But we've found additional uses for that technology. So I think always be thinking, what can I use what I already have to do? I think that's a mentality that's helped to get us really far. As to what I want in the future, this brings us back to kind of one of the topics of the show we've talked a little bit less about, which is AI in helping eliminate post-production. I think that a large language model tool with some AI agent, it's vague because it doesn't exactly exist yet, could 100% do a first draft edit of every single one of our videos, because it's very simple. We're filming the video, we have a multicam clip with all of the different isolated angles, and we've marked down with time-coded notes exactly where things went wrong. I want to be able to feed all that into a AI agent tool and have it spit me back out a first draft of the video, because it can look and go, oh, it messed up here, they picked it up there, they were saying, what were they saying there, that sentence, okay, let's cut it all together, and I have my first draft ready to go. As the editor, all I need to do is take a review, maybe add a bumper or two, and we're good to go.
Oh my God, OpenClaw and working overnight while you're asleep. That's going to be scary, Bills. Anyway, next question.
Comes to us from Tommy Johnson, St. Paul, Minnesota, USA. What are the top do's and don'ts for lighting?
Ooh, this is another big thing, but Ryan, what are your top couple?
Yeah, so I mean that's a very big question. That can also be a couple of days talking about just lighting.
Yeah, absolutely.
But since we're talking about green screen, that's a lot of what we do. I mean, my background is in on-set filming, but I got lazy and just went into a green screen studio instead. A lot of what we do is we actually light from front to back. So we will light the key light and the talent first. So we will spend a lot of time making sure that they look good, and then we will light the green. The main reason for that is that there's a good chance that you may get some spill from your key light onto your green. So if you spend the whole, morning dialing in the green, try and make it all look nice and even, and then someone sits in there and you go, boom, here's your key light, and you're like, now the background is overexposed or it's uneven. So we actually start from front to back, and that has definitely helped us a lot in what we do because, yeah, getting that green as even as possible, super crucial. So front to back. That's a pretty quick one. So yeah,
I'm going to pop in and go. The number one don't I have is do not put a single OB right on the camera and leave it at that, because your videos will all look like driver's license photos, and that is not a good look. Next question.
Here's Jeff Keithley in Texas, of course, asking, Ryan does not sound like a normal Tennessee resident. How did he end up at SociallyU?
Jeff, what's wrong with being a Tennessee resident? He's a volunteer. Anyway, Ryan, dive in.
Well, I jumped on a plane for a very long time from Sydney, Australia, and now I have ended up here in Tennessee, and it's been amazing. I am going to do my best to keep my Australian accent as much as possible. My wife may not be as good because she loves to absorb accents, but my two kids will probably have some weird hybrid of Southern Australian, but we'll see how it goes. So.
Oh, that'll be charming. I can't wait to hear it. Yes. Southern and Australian mixed together. Sounds perfect. Next question.
Jones in Michigan asks, how have the latest AI services helped your workflows? Is it more logistical or also part of the live production as well?
Yeah, this is another topic that is so huge right now. Can each of you do a little bit? Let's start with Isaac. Isaac?
Hey, boy, I'll tell you what about that AI, boy. Let me tell you.
The Southern is seeping out just a little bit, I'm saying.
No, I have actually a really, really practical example in the end, because I think with AI, it can get so broad and the claims can get so massive. It can be really easy to get sucked into this feeling that it can do anything, right? And so I think it's good to kind of come in. How does this work during a production? I will say nothing we're using right now is running alongside a production, right? Like, so nothing AI is we're not sitting there and it's like, oh, look, Claude just told me that I need to take a bathroom break, right? Like nothing is happening like that there. But here's a big one. So we use a lot of BitFocus Companion here to help do automation stuff. We actually use it to run a Behringer Wing as our intercom system plus a headphone mixer for multiple audio sources, right? Well, in that headphone mixer world, I need to have a dial. Well, a dial on a Stream Deck Plus is a button, and then above it, I wanted a button to quickly mute and unmute, right? And so that pair of buttons to copy and paste and change the function and change the icon. The first time we did a system like this, it took me hours and hours and hours. Now I made one button, I downloaded the companion config file, I handed it over to Claude Code, and I said, hey, copy this over to all the different stations, make sure they work the same, and make sure you just go ahead and add all the different channels we could have, but I really want to focus on these ones, so make sure they're first. And also go ahead and give it a volume indicator for each one. Go. And I imported that into Companion, and it didn't work. And then I asked it, hey, it didn't work this time because of this error. And I imported that in Companion, and it didn't work. And I asked it one more time, and then that time it worked, and now I'm done. And so what used to take me hours and hours of time now takes me half an hour. And I'm able to create these big workflows very, very quickly. And I think that's been the major unlock of AI for me, is it has been able to accelerate me into a position where I'm a very techie person. I'm a very nerdy person, but I am not a developer. I'm not a hardware engineer or a software engineer, but I'm able to access really the efficiencies of if I had that knowledge. I'm able to dive into that. I actually have been personally experimenting with creating studio apps. We actually use one to manage every single recording we do on our hyperdecks. We've built a whole app for that for ourselves. We built an app that routes and saves Video Hub routes where we can restore them at any time. There's all these tools that we use at the studio now every single production that didn't exist before, or the version I wanted didn't exist before I was able to go in and say, make the tool that I really want. And that, I think, has been the major power of AI for me.
Ryan.
I'll keep this one short, but there are many AI tools. If we're talking about background creation, I did see a question of like, are we selling background plates? We do plan to, but we are also developing another app, which is using all of the AI tools that we're using and combining them into one and kind of giving you like a wizard of what do you want to make today? Do you want to be in a coffee shop? What kind of lighting? It will actually guide you through the whole thing. So we are planning on releasing that soon.tm. So keep an eye on that and we will let you know when that's out.
Fair enough. Next question.
And from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What are some challenges that arise from a show flow that detaches the studio participants from the proximity of the audience they need to interact with?
Ooh, kind of touching on Remy here and the idea that you may be doing stuff out into an audience, and interaction is something we talk a lot about here at Office Hours. So Ryan, dive into your thoughts.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds like we're kind of talking about a live event here. So we do a lot of live events and they are awesome because once they're done, you can walk away. And I love that. Everything we can do to get rid of post-production, just anything. It's great. So we do, we work with some clients who are very into audience participation, trying to get people involved as much as possible. And chat interaction is key. We do a lot of times we're like, hey, if you're liking this, put yes in the chat. We love breaking chats in Zoom and Teams. It's really fun. The other thing we do is we try and do a lot of polls and we try and do a lot of interaction like that. And we encourage people to get their cameras on. If we're using Zoom, we try and use Zoom tiles. And so if they have our host in the studio, we try and give them a huge monitor wall of participants' faces so they have people to look at and kind of look around the room and say, hey, I've got people nodding away. But yeah, get in that chat, get the jump into the Zoom tools as much as possible. Try and get on Zoom. Because Andy and the team have done an amazing job to make this a lot easier for us.
We have been burning through questions, which is great, which means we have a little bit of room. We can probably fill out with just the ones we have here. But if you have a question, don't forget that part of the Office Hours process is you can vote on these questions. So if you're in the Mukana interface in the back end, you can vote questions up and down, and that helps us get to the ones that you want to hear answers to most rapidly. That all said, next question.
Here's one from Paul Kovacs in Elkhart, Indiana. You've torn apart your old green screen for a big upgrade recently. Have you upgraded anything else? Cameras, settings, lighting, etc.?
Isaac, how deep did you go with this refresh?
Well, man, I kind of, part of the reason I said I wanted to talk about this question is I want to iterate, we are always upgrading. And so, something we put out a lot of content. I think Paul here is referring to, we have a YouTube channel. We'll kind of discuss all of the changes at the studio, and we don't get to cover every single one of them just because we move very fast. We are a practicing studio, like a practicing hospital. We've always got clients coming in, right? And so a big, surprisingly big change for us recently, metaphorically and truthfully, is the good old Stream Deck Plus XL from Elgato. Having this at every single station has been actually really nice. So we have gone from having a couple of Stream Decks per station to usually just this big boy right here, and it is lovely. But there are so many different things. We actually did a whole video about that recently where we just talked through like, here's all the changes we've made recently, but we're always making more, right? One that's I think kind of up and coming and we haven't talked much about yet, so this is a little sneak preview for the Office Hours folks here, is the Blackmagic Pixis 6K cameras are getting continuous autofocus, and you can find that firmware floating around in the ephemera of the internet, and we have been using it, and it has been lovely for our use cases. I mean, it just nails the focus we need it to all the time. I mean, green screen autofocus, probably about the easiest autofocus conditions in the world, but we had tried Focus Pro for a while. That didn't work. We tried, the kind of one-shot focus, and people would lean a little too far forward or back. And so now having back to continuous autofocus again, we are very excited about that.
Ryan.
Yeah, and gosh, there's so many. We're constantly changing. We also did swap out our LV1 Waves rig, which was doing our mixing, and X32, which is doing our comms, for now two Behringer Wings, which is doing our audio. But now that we've got Fairlight Live that's just got released, we may end up using that for our live audio. So who knows? Watch this space.
Next question.
One from Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas. Are your plates available for purchase?
Oh, I think you brought that up a little earlier. Did we resolve that 100%? Or Isaac, you want to mention that?
Yeah, I think Ryan mentioned we're working on some software that's hopefully going to come out to help AI generate plates for those looking for that kind of thing. As for fully selling our plates, it is something we're looking into. There are an amount of them. We have the full commercial rights. We're able to sell those to other individuals. What we're really trying to do, and we've received this question so many times, we're trying to make sure we can deliver a really excellent product there, right? I mentioned earlier about the lens and the camera measurements, right? We want to be able to give those to you, but what if you're shooting on a camera with a different sensor size, right? Well, now you're going to have to be using a different lens, which is going to change and impact different things. So we want to make sure we're delivering a really excellent product there. And so part of what we've been holding back on is we're trying to work with some studios we have in kind of our VP Mastermind program and some of our consulting studios on, can we deliver a really excellent plate experience? And once we're able to deliver that, I think that's when we'll start being able to put those out for general public sale. But it is something we've heard that question so many times. It is top of mind for us, and just sharing that there are challenges because we want to deliver an excellent product there.
It seems to me that great cinematographers think of lenses the same way that great chefs think of spices, and it's very complex to get mixes exactly right, particularly if the main part of the dish, the camera sensor, as you say, changes camera to camera. It's really hard to rebalance everything. So big task, but we're all pulling for you. Good luck with it all. Next question.
Coffin is back with us in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How does filming in a dedicated studio change your audio workflow? What problems does it solve, and what new challenges does it create with room tone, reflections, isolation, or mic placement?
All right, let's try to keep this one to an hour and 45 minutes. Another big question, but we always love talking audio here because it is something that more people struggle with, I think, than even the video side of things. So, Ryan, let's start with you and dive in.
All right, let's get going. So this is probably, it's interesting. This is definitely one of the biggest parts of being in a studio and doing things like this, is that we can film all day. We've got no one walking through the in the background that's going to make noise.
We have a set. Yeah.
If we're shooting on set, we can just shoot as much as we want, and we're in a soundproof studio. We can just go all day. Also, we can treat the room, get rid of reflections. Now, being on green, it is hard because we do have a bunch of walls around the person, so we do try and bring in baffles to try and absorb that. But having that controlled room and having it dialed in so that you just know that I need the mic this far away and this angle, and we use Waves, a lot of plugins to try and clean up our audio. We are toying with some AI, so the Waves VX clarity and D-reverb to try and clean things up a bit more. And then we actually end up adding reverb back into it as well. So depending on the environment, we'll actually add reverb back into the audio. So we start with a really clean source, and then we adjust that reverb depending on the environment. We had one recently in a hockey stadium, so we cranked that reverb right up. It was still subtle, but it just made it sound like, oh yeah, that could sound like someone standing in the middle of an ice rink, and also added a bit of noise of aircon and cooling that there would be in the room. So all that really helps to try and make it feel like you're there. Because if you have a really clinical sound and you're in a busy street, it's just not going to make any sense. So trying to make that all come together definitely helps a lot.
Yeah, I do a lot of work on audiobooks, and it's one of the odd things is that people get knocked out of some of the large platforms for having too low a noise floor. It's a little unnatural when things are completely silent. So I'm always recommending to people these days that if you've got good noise reduction, don't dial it to 10 and leave it there thinking you're just going to eliminate every potential background sound and that's going to be fine. It can be not so fine. And I was really shocked when I started hearing that compatriots who are working on audiobooks like I was, they were getting rejected because their noise floor was too low. Next question.
Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas. Ryan, can you touch on budget-friendly options for evenly lighting flat green screens, no floor, without creating hot spots? Is there a formula?
And what instruments do you use in your studio? Are you the lantern kind of guy, or are you using flat panels, or what's your recipe?
So we found some at Lowe's. They're kitchen lights
Yay.
that we use to light our
Excellent.
green screen. So we call them the kitchen lights because they are. It doesn't have to be anything in particular for the green, but we touched on this earlier. But having that, so obviously that's for a curve, but we can talk about flat. Technology is hard apparently. Wow, there we go. Yep, there we go. So we got a flat line. We have found it. If you just got even just like a 1x1 panel or something like that, having that distance away and like that 45-degree angle of the light seems to give you a pretty good key. This is a side-on view, by the way. But if you also wanted to, we've had some good luck with, so this is like a front-on view with our person in the middle, trying to get the panels to the side. Again, this is just if we're just talking about a wall, trying to get that even spacing between the person, the wall, and the other side, and just kind of play with that. That seems to be working for us. But yeah, that 45 at the right distance seemed to be working.
It was interesting. You said early in the interview here, it's not so much about scopes and things like that. Sometimes it's just about a tape measure, and whatever works.
And yes,
question.
definitely get those scopes in there. That's super helpful.
Scopes are always, Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. We're there. Go ahead, Cindy.
From Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. For virtual production, how do you decide between a basic green screen composite and a real-time Unreal Engine environment? What are the trade-offs in prep time, realism, cost, and flexibility?
Isaac?
Well, I'll put it this way about realism. It is called Unreal. So there's that. No, Unreal Engine is great, but at the end of the day, it's a video game engine. I actually had a really great conversation with a gentleman from ILM about this, and he's like, there's a couple of things with Unreal Engine that are just fundamentally broken. It is not analogous to real life in all ways, right? And it can't be. It's just impossible to fully simulate in real time, right? And we have used Unreal Engine, and what we've primarily found is it's really great for if we're working with a client who, and this sounds rude, but it is not meant to be, doesn't know what they want yet, right? With a plate, you get one thing, and it's exactly what you see on the tin, right? But with Unreal Engine, they can go, can we move that lamp in? Or what if I put this poster up on the back wall? And just little things that we can very quickly change. And also, of course, if we want to have some more dynamic camera moves and stuff like that, that's where Unreal Engine comes into place. For us, though, the amount of pre-production effort you have to put into Unreal Engine is really, really, really high. And that seems like it's the opposite of having the flexibility, but it's because there's so much effort putting into launching Unreal, getting it working, and I'm generally the one operating it, and it feels like every time you do it, you're building a house out of glass, and people will ask you to make a move, and you go, okay, I need you to know if I breathe wrong, this whole thing's collapsing, right? And so it's definitely tough to get it right, and I think that can be challenging, but we actually... on Thursday, we'll be doing a production that will be using Unreal Engine. And the reason is the client was here last time they had Unreal Engine. They want the same thing again. It was a lot of different camera angles. They wanted this very specific vibe. But I think for a lot of what has been Unreal Engine productions, I see those getting replaced by AI generated background plates in the future because they look more real than Unreal Engine, right? So in terms of why we would pick Unreal versus a plate, the biggest thing, can't do camera movement on a plate. But there's pros and cons to everything.
Isaac and Ryan, it's been so much fun talking to you. I want to give you a chance to kind of close off. Is there anything about how people can contact you or any last subject you'd like to address here before we close things out? So let me start with Isaac, since you started first in the beginning of the show.
Sure thing. Yeah. Ryan and I are both here at SociallyU. You can actually email the whole team at studio@sociallyu.com. That will ping all of us and we will get back to you as soon as we can. That's effectively very helpful if you've got a consulting request or you think we can help you in some way. Please reach out. Let us know. We're also on YouTube. You can find the SociallyU YouTube channel. We try to do a semi-regular podcast called The Debrief, where we talk about every single production we can talk about, and we're trialing some new things with The Brief, where we talk about new things that you need to know. So check us out there. We are all over the interwebs, and we'd love to hear from you and love for you to check out what we're doing.
Ryan, last word?
Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, definitely check out the YouTube channel. There's a lot of content there. There was a question coming up about learning about the best tips on the Ultimate. Andre's done an awesome video on mastering. It's called Master Chroma Keying with the Ultimate Blackmagic Ultimate 12. Definitely go to that. That's the first point of call to getting a great setup out of the Ultimate.
Cool. Last bit of information. Next week, we're going to be looking at the constantly growing trend of live casting arts, crafts, and personal skills in general. And our own Cindy Drozda, who's on the panel right now reading questions, has graciously agreed to invite some of her friends in the craft of woodworking onto next week's Tuesday Focus to examine how they're putting their passion and their businesses on the web. So next week, we're going to brave the world of sawdust and giant lathes as we look at live streaming woodworking. It should be fascinating. Cindy's done a couple of tours of the way they are integrating, as somebody's integrating laser etching and woodworking. There's just so many aspects of this that I didn't know existed, and it's going to be all sorts of fun next week. Don't forget the regular show tomorrow at 7 a.m. And the last thing I have to do is the Tlaloc Traversal. For those of you who watch the show regularly, this was episode 2226. We would have virtually traveled 18,000 miles to go get the questions and answers and handle them here. 29,000 kilometers. That is 143 million bananas for scale. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week doing the same thing. Take care.